The stars stretched across the sky like a sea of tiny lights, cold and silent. The Vereen system was quiet, almost empty except for the armadas of the Thalren Dominion. Hundreds of ships moved in neat formations, their metal hulls glinting faintly under the distant sun of Vareen 4. The Dominion fleet had been in this part of the galaxy for weeks, patrolling, showing strength and waiting for any sign of human activity. To the Thalren, humans were mysterious little-known creatures from a backwater planet. They had heard stories of human courage, but stories meant nothing when faced with organized power. Admiral Kareth, the leader of the fleet, was confident. His black eyes scanned the holographic displays in front of him, showing the positions of each ship in real time. There was no reason to fear. They were in control. The Dominion ships were vast and precise, built for war. Each carried hundreds of weapons, and the crews were trained to follow orders without hesitation. Admiral Kareth took pride in his fleet. The Thalren had conquered countless star systems over centuries, and he had led successful campaigns before. Yet something in the readings from the outer edge of the system made him pause. Scout drones had detected an object moving quietly through the void. Its energy signature was strange, unlike anything Kareth had seen before. The readings were small, almost insignificant compared to a full fleet, but they hinted at danger. Still, he dismissed it. It was probably a small human ship, unarmed and insignificant. There was no way a single vessel could challenge the might of the Thalren Armada. Lieutenant Raylan, young but talented, stood beside Kareth, watching the readings nervously. "Admiral, the energy spike is unusual. It is not like anything in Dominion records," he said. His voice was calm, but there was tension under it. Kareth looked at him and waved a hand dismissively. "Check again, Raylan. Make sure the sensors are not faulty. It is probably just a rogue freighter or a stray mining vessel. Nothing more." Raylan hesitated, then nodded, running scans again. The ship was small, yes, but its power output was massive. Every system on the Dominion vessels picked up the spike, but none could identify the source. "Admiral," Raylan said quietly, "this ship, it is not just powerful, it is different. I cannot classify the systems. They are beyond anything we know." Kareth frowned. He had seen many technologies in his life, and he knew there were strange worlds, strange people. But he had never seen anything like this. Still, he held his composure. "Do not overthink it, Lieutenant. Send a message. Make it clear that we are here. Let them know the Dominion is present. That should be enough." Meanwhile, far away from the Thalren fleet, the human warship moved through space silently. The ship was not large compared to the Dominion vessels, but it had a presence. Its hull was strong, reinforced with metals and alloys that had been designed over decades to withstand extreme damage. Captain Laura Grant stood on the bridge, calm and focused as her crew worked around her. The warship was part of a small fleet of humans that had trained for years in secrecy. Earth's fleets were advanced, but the humans had also learned to hide their strength. Most of the galaxy did not know how much humanity had built in secret. Laura's mission was simple: patrol the outer systems, stay alert, and protect humanity's territories if needed. But today she knew they were about to meet someone unexpected. The ship's sensors detected the Dominion fleet almost immediately. Hundreds of ships, spread across the system like a net, their weapons shining faintly even across the vast distance. The humans had seen such fleets in simulations, but never in real life. Yet Laura did not panic. She was calm, her years of training and experience showing in every decision she made. "All stations report status," she ordered. Her voice was steady, firm. Crew members checked their systems and reported back. Shields at full power, weapons systems online, energy output stable. The Valiant was ready. Laura looked at the stars and whispered almost to herself, "Let's see what they think they can do." Back with the Dominion, Admiral Kareth's confidence began to waver. The ship, though small, emitted a strange pattern of energy. It did not try to hide or escape. It simply moved as if it owned the space around it. Kareth leaned closer to his controls. "Raylan, bring up a detailed scan. I want to know everything about that vessel. Every weapon, every system, every piece of armor." Lieutenant Raylan's fingers flew across the console. The scanners hummed as they tried to map the human ship. For a moment, the display filled with data, but it made no sense. Energy readings fluctuated in ways that defied physics. Weapons systems appeared capable of firing multiple types of ammunition at once. The hull could absorb hits that should have destroyed it. "Admiral," Raylan said, voice low, "these readings, they can't be real." It is impossible that one ship has this much power. Kareth's pride tightened in his chest. Impossible or not, it is there. Prepare to open communications. We need to establish control. He sent a message, a standard Dominion warning: identify yourself and submit to inspection. Silence answered him. The human ship did not respond immediately. The fleet waited, tens of thousands of beings across hundreds of ships, tense and watching. Then, without warning, a transmission came through. It was not loud or aggressive, just a simple voice speaking in basic galactic common. Identify yourselves. The calm, clear tone carried authority. There was no fear, no hesitation. It was unnerving. On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Grant stood firm. They are trying to scan us, her communications officer said. Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the vast display of approaching enemy vessels. Let them try, she said. They will learn what they are dealing with. Do not fire unless I give the order. We are not the first aggressors here, but we will not be pushed around either. Her crew moved with precision, adjusting shields, preparing weapon systems, and keeping a careful eye on the enemy fleet. For the first time in generations, humans were no longer hidden. They were seen, and the galaxy was about to learn just how capable they were. In the Dominion fleet, tension grew. Admiral Kareth had never encountered such calmness in the face of threat. Most species, most captains would have either fled or surrendered by now. This human did neither. They were quiet, controlled, and measured, and that scared him more than any weapon. He looked at the readings again, hoping for some error, some mistake, but there was none. The ship was exactly as it appeared, powerful, advanced, and unyielding. The hours passed slowly. The Dominion ships moved into tighter formations, preparing for the possibility of battle. Their scanners continued to study the human vessel, trying to find a weakness, any flaw that could be exploited. But the more they scanned, the less they understood. The ship's design was unlike anything in the galaxy. Each system seemed interconnected, each defense mechanism anticipatory, as if the ship could predict threats before they arrived. Kareth's pride turned to frustration. No tactics worked, no tricks succeeded. He had commanded fleets across countless worlds, and yet here he was, powerless before a single vessel. On the Valiant, Captain Grant's crew worked quietly. Every sensor, every calculation was monitored, but there was no panic. They were humans trained to adapt, to survive, to fight when necessary, and they had waited for this day. They had built these ships, trained their crews, and prepared for the galaxy to look down on them and underestimate their strength. Laura's eyes met the vast black of space. In a few moments, the silence would break. One choice, one move, and the first real contact between humans and the galaxy's greatest armada would occur. The calm before the storm stretched across the void, tense and fragile like ice waiting to crack. Finally, as the two forces drifted closer, Lieutenant Raylan spoke again. Admiral, I recommend extreme caution. This ship, it is not a simple human vessel. It is something else, something we do not understand. Kareth's hands tightened on the controls. He had faced death before, he had faced rebellion, he had faced impossible odds, but this was different. There was fear in the eyes of his officers, even if they did not admit it. And yet he could not show weakness. He had to act, to command, to maintain the image of the Dominion. Very well, he said finally. Prepare weapons. Keep scanning, and above all, do not underestimate them. In the silent expanse of space, the human warship drifted, waiting, watching, ready. The galaxy was about to see something it had never imagined, and for the Dominion, that moment would change everything. The Dominion fleet continued to drift through the black void of Varine IV's outer orbit, their hundreds of ships like a silent wall of metal and energy. Admiral Kareth stood on the bridge of his flagship, eyes fixed on the strange readings from the human vessel. Lieutenant Raylan worked frantically at his console, scanning, analyzing, trying to find a weakness. The more he scanned, the more impossible the results became. Every system aboard the human ship seemed to be layered, interconnected, and adaptive. The hull absorbed energy attacks before they fully hit. The engines shifted power in a way that allowed almost instant evasive maneuvers. And the weapons systems, Raylan could not even classify half of them. This is impossible, Raylan whispered. No ship should be able to do this. They are too advanced for their size. Admiral Kareth frowned. His pride as a Dominion admiral had never allowed doubt to creep in, but now he felt a cold unease. The humans were supposed to be a minor species, scattered across a few systems, their fleets primitive. No species could build something like this without years of exposure to galactic knowledge, and humanity had been isolated for centuries. He glanced at the holographic display, seeing the human warship drift calmly in the void. It seemed small, even fragile compared to his massive ships, yet every reading screamed danger. Raylan's fingers danced over the controls, sending every available sensor into overdrive. "Admiral," he said, his voice tight, "their energy output, it is off the charts. Their reactors are small, but they push more power than a Dominion cruiser fleet. I cannot explain it. Their shields, they are not shields like we know. They adapt. Every attempt to penetrate them fails instantly. They are learning from us." Kareth's claws tightened on the railing. He had never felt this before. Never. His fleets had conquered entire systems, destroyed civilizations, and crushed rebellions. But now he felt small. The human ship was not moving aggressively. It did not fire. It did not retreat. It simply drifted, scanning, observing, and making no mistakes. The silence was worse than attack. "Prepare communications," Kareth finally ordered. "We will attempt one more warning. This species cannot be allowed to exist as a threat. If we do not act now, they could." He did not finish the sentence. His officers understood. The implication was clear. Humanity could become a threat to the entire Dominion. A technician brought up the communication console. "Message ready, Admiral." Kareth nodded. "Transmit in Galactic Common. Make it formal. Make it strong. We demand their surrender, identification, and immediate obedience." Raylan hesitated. "Admiral, they have already received messages. There has been no response except the previous command. Identify yourselves." Kareth's eyes narrowed. "Then let them see our might. Let them understand that the Dominion does not wait for answers. We are patience and fire combined. Transmit it." The message streaked across the void. It was precise, cold, and full of authority. Every ship in the Dominion fleet broadcast it. A warning, a demand, a threat. Silence returned. The human vessel remained where it was, seemingly unaffected by the presence of hundreds of warships. Its hull reflected the light of distant stars, as if mocking the Dominion's display of strength. On the human ship, Captain, Laura Grant stood on the bridge observing the incoming message. Her crew monitored the Dominion transmissions with calm efficiency. Communications Officer David Miller leaned over his console. "Captain, they are demanding surrender. Hundreds of ships. They are aggressive." Laura nodded. "Let them. Do not respond yet. Let them waste their energy thinking they are in control. We are not. Not yet. Keep shields ready. Keep weapons ready. And stay calm." The crew of the human ship moved with quiet precision. They had trained for moments like this for years. Every system, every weapon, every sensor was ready. The humans had known they would one day be confronted by larger, older species. They had expected this. But for the Dominion, this was the first time they had truly encountered a human vessel at full power. Back on the Dominion flagship, Raylan was scanning the human ship again, desperately searching for a flaw. "Admiral, I cannot find any weakness. Their shields are unmatched. Their weapons are unmatched. I do not understand it. They are learning as we scan. Every attempt we make is countered before it happens." Kareth's voice was low, almost a hiss. "So they are prepared. So they are smart. So they are human. Prepare the fleet. Stay on high alert. I do not want to underestimate them. Not for 1 second." For hours, both sides studied each other in silence. The Dominion fleet maintained formation, weapons ready, sensors probing, trying to find the smallest weakness. The human ship drifted calmly, scanning, analyzing, waiting. Every Dominion tactic, every move was anticipated. The humans were not aggressive, but they were not afraid. That lack of fear gnawed at Kareth's mind. Suddenly, a warning signal erupted across the Dominion fleet. Raylan shouted, "Admiral, they are targeting us. Our scans." They are not passive. They are scanning every ship in the fleet, every system, every weapon, every shield. They are predicting our moves. Kareth's eyes widened. This was impossible. No species, no matter how advanced, could scan and process an entire armada in real time. The human ship was not just a weapon. It was a machine of thought, learning, and adaptation. Divert energy to shields. Prepare to fire at their location if necessary. But his voice trailed off. Be careful. They may be faster than anything we have faced. Meanwhile, on the Valiant, Captain Grant observed the fleet calmly. Let them scan. Let them try to understand what they are facing, she said quietly. We will not make the first mistake. They will, and when they do, they will see what humans are capable of. The Dominion fleet tensed, waiting for a signal from their admiral. Hundreds of ships prepared weapons, energy gathered, missiles armed, plasma conduits charged. The humans did not move, but every sensor reading, every calculation indicated readiness. Kareth had never felt this before. He had fought great battles, destroyed planets, and crushed fleets. But now he faced something unknown, something impossible. The hours stretched into days. The Dominion fleet grew increasingly anxious. Kareth's officers argued quietly among themselves. Admiral, one said, we could attack. Strike now before they have the chance to... No, Kareth said firmly. We cannot rush. We need information. We need to understand what we face. Strike too soon and we may lose the advantage. We do not understand their systems. We do not know their limits. Patience. Even as he spoke, more alerts sounded. The human ship's energy patterns were not static. Shields adjusted constantly. Weapons moved, calibrating, analyzing. It was as if the ship itself was alive, thinking, learning. Raylan's hands shook as he tried to keep up with the scanning. Admiral, they are faster than our sensors can track. Faster than any weapon we have. Every calculation we make, they have already accounted for. Kareth's pride fought against the fear rising in his chest. He had faced impossible odds before. He had overcome overwhelming enemies. But this was different. The humans were not just strong. They were prepared. They were smart. They were patient. And they did not show fear. Across the void, Captain Grant's voice broke the silence of her bridge. Prepare weapons, but do not fire yet. Let them make the first mistake. Let them reveal themselves fully. When they do, we will respond with everything we have. Her crew nodded, moving with precise, silent efficiency. Every system, every weapon, every shield was prepared. They had trained for this moment for decades. Back on the Dominion flagship, Kareth watched the human ship. It remained calm, drifting through the void like a predator waiting for prey. Every scan, every energy reading, every movement was perfect. The Dominion fleet had power, numbers, experience, but against a single human vessel, all of that seemed meaningless. Kareth could not deny it. Fear had entered his mind. The humans were not weak. The humans were not simple. They were something else. And then, without warning, the human ship's sensors activated a direct scan of the Dominion fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every shield, every energy output was mapped and analyzed in seconds. Alarms erupted across the Dominion armada. The humans were not just defensive. They were learning. They were predicting. Every move, every calculation, every strategy was anticipated. Raylan's voice trembled. Admiral, they know everything. Everything we plan. They can predict our attacks. We cannot fight like this. Kareth gritted his teeth. He had never faced such an opponent. Not in 1,000 battles. Not against 1,000 systems. And yet, here they were. A single human vessel. Calm, silent, deadly in ways he could not comprehend. The void stretched endlessly. Both sides watched each other, waiting for the first move. The humans did not blink, did not waver. The Dominion fleet prepared, but every system, every calculation, was haunted by the knowledge that this small ship, might be more powerful than their entire armada combined. And then Captain Grant spoke quietly, almost to herself. Let them see. Let them understand. The galaxy has underestimated us for too long. Now, they will learn. The silence before the storm lasted a heartbeat. But in that moment, across the void, both sides understood the same truth. This was not a simple confrontation. This was a meeting of two worlds. And for the Dominion, it was the first taste of fear. The stars around the Vereen system twinkled coldly as the Dominion fleet waited, tense and silent. Hours of scanning and observing had done nothing to reassure Admiral Kareth. Every attempt to find a weakness in the human ship had failed. The vessel was small, but it was precise and deadly, its systems responding to every action of the Dominion fleet before the fleet could even act. Kareth's pride as a warrior and commander battled with the growing fear in his mind. He had never faced anything like this. Not in 1,000 battles had he felt so uncertain. Lieutenant Raylan leaned over the console, fingers moving frantically across the holographic controls. Admiral, they are analyzing every system, every weapon, every shield. They are predicting our formations, our firing sequences. Nothing we try is hidden from them. His voice trembled. Kareth did not respond immediately. He stared at the image of the human ship drifting silently across the void. It was calm, almost peaceful, yet it radiated power. They are waiting for us to make a mistake, Kareth finally said, his voice low, and they will punish us when we do. Across the void, Captain Laura Grant remained calm, her eyes scanning the fleet on her main display. She had trained for years for this moment. Humanity had been underestimated by the galaxy for too long. Every species that had ever dismissed humans had paid a price. She knew that now, a single vessel could not destroy the Dominion fleet alone, but one human ship, perfectly commanded, perfectly armed, could show the galaxy that humans were not weak. Prepare defensive grids, Laura said quietly. Weapons at standby. Let them approach. Do not fire unless I give the order. Her crew moved with quiet precision, shields activating, weapon systems humming, engines powering for sudden bursts. The Valiant was ready, and Captain Grant was calm as ever. The Dominion fleet tightened its formation, hundreds of ships moving as one, powerful and coordinated. Every energy weapon, missile launcher, and plasma cannon was activated, ready to strike. Sensors flared across the fleet, trying to detect weaknesses to find any advantage. Yet every reading came back the same. The human ship was beyond understanding. Every scan, every calculation, every prediction they made was met with adaptation. The humans were not just reacting. They were thinking ahead, predicting every move, every attack, every formation. Lieutenant Raylan's voice broke the tense silence. Admiral, they are locking onto all of our ships simultaneously. Their targeting systems, they are not just weapons. They are learning machines. They will hit us before we even fire. Kareth's claws clenched the railing. His pride and anger battled with fear. He had conquered star systems larger than this, crushed species that had lasted thousands of years. And yet now, faced with a single human ship, he felt powerless. Divert maximum energy to shields. Launch countermeasures. Prepare to fire on my mark. But remember, be careful. One wrong move and we could lose everything. The silence stretched across the void. Both sides waited, studying, calculating, anticipating. For hours, neither moved. Then, without warning, Lieutenant Raylan shouted, Admiral, they are opening fire. On the Dominion flagship, screens lit up with energy readings. Tens of thousands of energy beams, plasma bolts, and guided missiles began to streak toward the human ship. Kareth felt a surge of relief. At last they would strike. At last they would destroy this small, impossible vessel. Yet his relief was short-lived. On the human ship, Captain Grant watched the incoming attacks with calm precision. Divert all power to shields. Activate adaptive countermeasures. Engines at full readiness. The Valiant shivered as the first wave of energy hit its shields. The human ship did not tremble, it did not falter. The beams bounced off the adaptive shields, harmlessly dissipating in sparks of light. The missiles were deflected by powerful magnetic fields, redirected safely into space. Every attack the Dominion fleet launched was neutralized before it could even reach the hull. Lieutenant Raylan's hands flew across the console. Admiral, every weapon they fire is absorbed or redirected. They are not just defending. They are studying our weapons. They are learning from us. Kareth's eyes widened. He had faced overwhelming odds, but he had never faced an enemy that could think faster than his fleet. "Hold your positions," he ordered. "Do not panic, observe, we will find a way. We always do." But the Dominion fleet had no idea what was coming next. On the Valiant, Captain Grant's crew prepared their weapons. Not to strike yet, but to demonstrate the human fleet's power. "Prepare the railguns and plasma disruptors," she said quietly. "We will show them what a human ship can do. Not for attack, for warning." In the void, the human ship's weapons systems activated. Energy flowed through conduits, charging railguns and plasma disruptors. The ship remained calm, almost serene, as it aimed at several Dominion vessels that had approached too closely. Then, with precise timing, the human ship fired. The first volley struck a mid-sized Dominion cruiser. The railguns pierced its hull with pinpoint accuracy, tearing through the armor like paper. Explosions erupted across the ship, tearing it apart in seconds. The Dominion fleet froze, staring at the destruction in disbelief. "Impossible," Raylan whispered. One ship just destroyed a cruiser. Instantly, Captain Grant's crew worked in silence, eyes focused on the displays. Every weapon fired, every target destroyed was calculated for maximum effect. The humans were not reckless. They were not angry. They were precise. They were efficient. And they were terrifying. Across the Dominion fleet, panic spread. Ships that had been confident just minutes before now hesitated. Admiral Kareth's claws dug into the railing.
"Form defensive lines."
"Fire everything. Do not let them destroy another ship." But the humans anticipated every move. Every beam fired, every missile launched was predicted and countered. The Valiant moved like a ghost, drifting effortlessly through space, its shields flaring, its weapons precise and deadly. One by one, Dominion ships were disabled or destroyed. Their weapons destroyed, their engines shredded. Panic replaced confidence. Lieutenant Raylan's voice trembled. "Admiral, we cannot fight like this. They are too fast, too strong, too smart. One ship is doing what hundreds of ours should do, and more." Kareth's pride battled his fear. He had never failed before. He had never been outmatched. But now he faced something beyond his experience, beyond his understanding. The human ship was not just a weapon. It was a machine of war, thinking, learning, and adapting in real time. On the Valiant, Captain Grant remained calm. "Prepare another volley," she said quietly. "Do not stop. Let them see what humans can do." The crew worked silently, charging weapons, monitoring shields, analyzing every attack, and adapting to every movement of the Dominion fleet. The Dominion fleet tried to retreat, reorganize, and counterattack. But every move was anticipated. Every strategy was countered. Their weapons hit nothing. Their formations broke under the precise strikes of a single human vessel. Panic became fear. Fear became terror. Ships that had been symbols of Dominion power now drifted in pieces, wrecked and burning in the cold void of space. Kareth's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Stop, this cannot be real. One ship cannot do this." "It is impossible," Raylan shook his head. "It is real, Admiral. We are being destroyed by one human ship, and they are not even fully aggressive yet." The human vessel moved silently, its weapons precise, its shields adaptive, its engines flawless. It was not reckless. It was not emotional. It was perfect. And in that perfection, it showed the galaxy what humans had become. The Dominion fleet had expected to destroy, to conquer, to intimidate. Instead, they faced something beyond their calculations, beyond their experience, and beyond their fear. Captain Grant's eyes remained calm as she watched the Dominion fleet crumble. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "Let them understand. Let them remember. Humans are not weak. Humans are not simple. Humans fight differently, and they do not give up." The void around Varine IV became a graveyard of Dominion ships. Explosions shimmered across the cold darkness as debris drifted slowly. The surviving ships attempted to flee, but the human ship moved faster than predicted, intercepting, disabling, and neutralizing them with efficiency and precision. Lieutenant Raylan whispered in horror, "Admiral, we cannot fight them. We cannot stop them. One ship, one human ship, is destroying us all." Admiral Kareth's eyes burned with disbelief and fear. He had led fleets to victory across countless battles, but now, before a single human ship, he felt powerless. The humans were not just soldiers. They were not just advanced. They were a force that the galaxy had never seen, and in the silence after the destruction, one thought echoed across the Dominion fleet. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. Ships that had once moved with perfect precision were now scattered, damaged, and on fire. Energy beams glowed across space as weapons misfired or failed entirely. Explosions ripped through the Armada like lightning striking a forest. Everywhere, Dominion crews scrambled to respond, but their training and numbers meant little against the human warship. The Valiant moved calmly through the destruction, its shields absorbing what should have been fatal strikes, its weapons precise, deadly, and unstoppable. Admiral Kareth stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the screens in disbelief. Hundreds of his ships were already destroyed. Tens of thousands of soldiers were dead or disabled, and yet the human ship remained undamaged. "How is this possible?" he whispered almost to himself. One ship, one single ship, should not be able to do this. Lieutenant Raylan tried to keep up with the reports. "Admiral, they are not just firing back. They are anticipating every maneuver we make, every formation we try, every countermeasure. They neutralize it before it can even act." His hands shook as he typed commands, trying to organize what remained of the fleet. "They are learning faster than we can adapt." Kareth's claws gripped the railing. He had fought impossible battles before, but nothing had prepared him for this. The humans were not merely strong or advanced. They were precise, intelligent, and fearless. One small vessel had turned a fleet into debris, and every calculation the Dominion made was already obsolete. Meanwhile, Captain Laura Grant of the Valiant remained calm. She watched the Dominion fleet carefully, analyzing the damaged ships, predicting movements, and directing her crew with quiet authority. "Prepare the next volley," she said, her voice steady. "Target the largest concentrations. Do not destroy everything yet. Let them feel the cost of underestimating humanity." Her crew worked silently. The railguns charged, plasma disruptors hummed, and adaptive targeting systems locked onto the remaining Dominion ships. The humans had trained for years, preparing for this exact moment. Every system, every weapon, every shield had been tested and perfected in simulations, drills, and secret battles. Now the time had come. The first human strike hit the Dominion flagship. The railgun fired a single projectile with devastating speed and precision. It pierced the outer hull, cutting through reinforced armor like paper. Explosions tore through the ship, systems failed one by one, and alarms screamed across the bridge. Officers scrambled to respond, but their efforts were useless. The projectile had been aimed perfectly, exploiting a weakness that no Dominion engineer had predicted. Admiral Kareth gritted his teeth, fury and fear battling inside him. "Divert all power to shields. Fire everything. Do not let them destroy another ship." But the humans anticipated this. The Valiant moved smoothly, its engines flaring briefly to adjust position, and fired again. Another Dominion cruiser exploded in flames, its crew screaming in panic as they were thrown into space. One by one, ships that had once been symbols of Dominion power fell to the human ship's calculated strikes. Every weapon fired was precise. Every target destroyed was deliberate. No attack was wasted, no energy misused. Across the fleet, panic spread like wildfire. Officers shouted orders that were impossible to follow. Communications broke down as transmissions failed to reach ships. Fear replaced confidence, and fear turned to terror. The Dominion had faced overwhelming odds before, but they had never been destroyed by a single ship. They had never been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and overpowered at the same time. Lieutenant Raylan's voice trembled. "Admiral, we are losing. We cannot fight them. One ship, one human ship, is destroying us all." Kareth's claws dug into the railing. He could not believe it, but he could not deny it either. The humans were not merely defending themselves. They were reshaping the battle. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson in power, intelligence, and precision. And that lesson was already deadly. On the Valiant, Captain Grant issued orders calmly. "Target their command vessels. Disable their communications. Let the rest of the fleet see what happens when they underestimate humans." The railguns fired again, tearing through communication arrays, destroying command consoles, and leaving chaos in their wake. Ships that had survived the first strikes now drifted helplessly, unable to coordinate, unable to respond. The Dominion fleet was falling apart piece by piece. Raylan stared at the screens, horrified. "Admiral, the human ship, It is controlling the battlefield. Every ship we try to move, every weapon we try to fire, it is predicting it. We are trapped in its calculations. We cannot escape. Kareth's pride burned with fury. He had commanded fleets larger than this, conquered civilizations, and faced enemies far stronger than humans. And yet he had never been powerless like this. The humans had turned his greatest strength, organization, coordination, and numbers, against him. One ship, piloted by one species, had undone centuries of Dominion experience. Explosions lit the void as more ships fell. The Valiant moved with deadly precision, never hesitating, never missing a target. Every energy weapon fired was met with countermeasures. Every missile intercepted, every fleet maneuver anticipated. The humans were calm, efficient, and devastating. On the Dominion flagship, Kareth bellowed orders, but they were impossible to follow. Officers were too busy managing their own damaged ships. Systems failed, engines shut down, and weapons misfired. Panic spread across the Armada. Hundreds of ships had already been destroyed, and the rest were losing the will and ability to fight. The human ship was teaching them a lesson they could not comprehend. Lieutenant Raylan whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Admiral, this is beyond anything we imagined. One ship, one human ship, is turning the tide of this battle. Entire formations destroyed, hundreds dead, and they are just beginning." Kareth's black eyes burned with fury and fear. He had never felt so powerless. The humans were not just a species. They were an idea, a force, and a warning. And that warning had just begun to take shape in the cold darkness of space. Captain Grant remained calm, issuing precise orders. "Engage their largest remaining vessels. Do not stop. Keep pressure on them. Let them know the cost of underestimating humans." The Valiant fired again. Railguns struck the largest ships, tearing through armor and hulls with ease. Plasma disruptors disabled engines and weapons, leaving ships drifting helplessly. The Dominion fleet had lost cohesion, power, and hope. Across the void, the remaining ships tried to retreat. Some fled toward the outer rim of the system. Others attempted to regroup, forming small groups to resist. But the human ship was faster, more precise, and always in control. Every attack was neutralized. Every move was predicted. Every attempt to fight back failed. Admiral Kareth stared at the destruction around him. He had seen his fleet reduced to debris, his soldiers thrown into space, his weapons useless. He could not believe it. How could one species, one ship, have so much power? How could humans be so precise, so intelligent, so deadly? The answer terrified him. Humanity had been underestimated. Humanity had been ignored. And now they were showing the galaxy why they should never be underestimated again. On the Valiant, Captain Grant gave one final order. "Disable their remaining fleet. Do not destroy everything. Let the survivors know the cost of attacking humans. Let them live to tell the story." The railguns fired with precision, disabling engines, weapons, and communication systems. The surviving Dominion ships drifted helplessly, scattered and broken. They were no longer a threat, only witnesses to the power of humanity. Lieutenant Raylan whispered in disbelief, "Admiral, it is over. One human ship has destroyed nearly our entire fleet. We cannot fight them. We cannot win." Kareth's claws tightened on the railing. He had commanded fleets to victory countless times. He had faced impossible odds and survived. But now he was powerless. He had faced humanity. He had faced the Valiant. And he had lost. The void of Vereen 4 was silent, except for the burning debris of the Dominion fleet. One human ship drifted through the wreckage, calm, precise, and deadly. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it was capable of. One ship, one species, and one message. Do not underestimate humans. Captain Grant looked at the stars, her voice calm but firm. "This is only the beginning. Humanity has waited long enough. Let the galaxy remember today, the day they learned not to underestimate us." And in the cold silence of space across the remains of the shattered fleet, that message echoed. Fear, respect, and awe spread across the surviving Dominion forces. Humanity had revealed its strength, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The void of Vereen 4 was quiet now. Smoke and debris from the shattered Dominion fleet floated slowly through the blackness of space. Hundreds of ships had been destroyed, thousands of lives lost, and the surviving vessels drifted, powerless and broken. The human warship, the Valiant, moved calmly among the wreckage, shields still strong, weapons systems still ready, engines humming silently. Captain Laura Grant stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the remains of the Armada. Humanity had won the battle, but she knew the war for the galaxy's respect had only just begun. Her crew worked in silence, checking systems, repairing minor damages, and ensuring that the ship remained fully operational. Every officer, every crew member, knew the significance of what had just happened. They had faced an entire fleet of the galaxy's most powerful species, and had emerged victorious. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do, and they had done it with precision, calm, and efficiency. No one panicked, no one rushed, no one wasted a single move. Humanity had proven itself. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Kareth stared at the wreckage on the main screen. The pride that had defined him for centuries was gone, replaced by fear, disbelief, and shame. His fleet, the one he had commanded with confidence and skill, was almost completely destroyed. The survivors drifted helplessly in space, their engines disabled, their weapons destroyed. For the first time in his life, Kareth felt powerless. He had faced strong enemies before, but none like the humans. One small ship had dismantled an entire fleet with skill, intelligence, and precision beyond his comprehension. Lieutenant Raylan, still trembling, whispered, "Admiral, they are not just strong. They are something else. One ship, one human ship, has done what we could not imagine. Hundreds of our ships are gone. Thousands of soldiers, lost, and yet they remain untouched." Kareth's claws dug into the railing. He could not speak. The loss, the humiliation, the realization of human power was almost unbearable. He had always believed in the Dominion's strength, its experience, and its superiority. Now he saw that humans were not inferior. They were not weak. They were a force that could not be underestimated, and he had been foolish to believe otherwise. On the Valiant, Captain Grant activated the communications array. She knew that the remaining Dominion ships were watching, listening, and terrified. Her voice was calm, firm, and carried through the void of space. "This is humanity. You have attacked our systems and sought to destroy our fleets. You have underestimated us. This is your first and only warning. Leave this system immediately and tell your species that humans are not to be challenged. If you attack again, you will find that one human ship is only the beginning." The silence on the Dominion fleet was absolute. The surviving captains and officers could not respond. They were in shock, trying to comprehend what had happened. One message from a single human captain had undone centuries of Dominion pride, power, and control. They were not just defeated, they were humiliated, outmatched, and warned. Captain Grant turned to her crew. "Prepare to depart. We have shown them what humans are capable of. We do not seek more destruction today, but we will not be underestimated. Keep all systems active. Maintain shields and weapons. We leave only to let them live and remember." The human warship moved silently through the debris, carefully avoiding wreckage, and headed back toward deep space. The crew worked efficiently, making sure no part of the ship was damaged, no system compromised. They had done what many thought impossible. They had faced an entire fleet and survived, and they had done it without a single loss of life on their side. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Every species that had ever dismissed humans, every council that had ignored Earth, every fleet that had assumed humans were weak, received the same report. A single human warship had destroyed almost an entire Dominion fleet. The report showed the precision, the calm, the deadly efficiency of the human crew. The galaxy began to understand that humans were not just another species. They were a force that could not be ignored. In the Dominion capital, news of the defeat spread quickly. Admirals, generals, and leaders gathered, staring at the reports, trying to make sense of what had happened. Kareth was called to give an account of the battle. His pride and ego had been shattered. We were defeated by one ship. One human ship," he reported quietly. "They are stronger, smarter, faster than any force we have faced. They are not to be underestimated." Outside, the galaxy's other leaders listened, alarms and warnings spreading across borders. The humans had revealed themselves not just as warriors, but as a species that could think, act, and dominate in ways that no one had predicted. For centuries, humanity had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed. That had ended. On the Valiant, Captain Grant stood at the observation window, looking out into the blackness of space. She thought about the galaxy, about the countless systems that had ignored humans, that had mocked humanity, that had assumed they were weak. Now those systems would remember. Humanity had the skill, the intelligence, and the courage to protect its people, and they had the power to make the galaxy respect them. Lieutenant Miller approached her quietly. Captain, they will not forget this. Every species, every fleet. We'll talk about this for years. They will fear us, Captain Grant nodded. Let them remember. But fear alone is not enough. We must continue to grow, to train, to prepare. The galaxy may challenge us again, and next time we will be ready. The remaining Dominion ships attempted to retreat, engines sparking, shields barely holding. They moved slowly, drifting toward the outer edges of the system. The human ship did not pursue. It had done its work. The message had been delivered. Humans were not to be underestimated. They had destroyed almost an entire fleet with intelligence, precision, and skill. That lesson would echo across the galaxy. Kareth watched the human ship depart. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Not just fear for his fleet or his pride, but fear of humanity itself. He had underestimated humans, and that mistake had cost him everything. The surviving Dominion ships were broken, and their crews would carry the memory of this defeat forever. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not just survivors. They were warriors, strategists, and a force that could not be ignored. Across distant worlds, alien leaders received the same news. Shock, disbelief, and fear spread quickly. They had assumed that humans were primitive, weak, and isolated. Now they knew that assumption was deadly. One human ship had destroyed an entire armada. One human crew had shown precision, intelligence, and deadly skill. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not through words, but through action. On the Valiant, the crew worked quietly, repairing minor damages and checking every system. They had achieved what many thought impossible. They had won a battle that the galaxy assumed they would lose. Captain Grant addressed the crew. You have all done an extraordinary job. Today you have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. Remember this moment, but do not grow complacent. There will be others who test us. There will be others who underestimate us. We must be ready. Always. Her crew nodded, proud but aware of the responsibility now resting on humanity's shoulders. They had not only defended themselves, they had changed the galaxy's perception of humans forever. In the Dominion capital, Kareth stood before his council. Humans are not to be challenged. They are not to be underestimated. One ship, one single vessel, has shown us a power beyond comprehension. We must retreat, regroup, and never forget this. The council members were silent. For centuries, the Dominion had been the greatest power in this part of the galaxy, and now a single human ship had shattered that power in hours. Fear spread through their ranks. Respect, perhaps, but more importantly, fear. Humanity had shown that they could not be defeated with pride, numbers, or conventional tactics. Meanwhile, Captain Grant of the Valiant set course for deep space. The mission was not over. Humanity had made its presence known, but there were countless worlds and civilizations yet to understand the strength and skill of humans. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget, and the humans aboard the Valiant were the ones who delivered it. Set course for home, Laura said quietly. We have done enough for today. The galaxy will remember humanity now, and when the time comes, we will be ready to protect it. As the Valiant moved into the cold, silent expanse of deep space, the surviving Dominion ships drifted helplessly, carrying the knowledge of defeat, the memory of destruction, and the warning that humans were not a species to be underestimated. Humanity had sent a message that would echo across the stars for decades, perhaps centuries. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had just begun.